Killers of the Flower Moon is the newest film by master director Martin Scorsese and follows the true story of the 1920s Osage murders in Oklahoma. Don't want to reveal anything else specifically about this film other than that, because there's a lot of surprises and genuine heartbreaking moments that might not hit as well if you know everything about this film. All I'm going to say is, with that opening line, go see it in theaters, go support this movie, go support what Scorsese's doing. His impact on cinema is truly nothing to laugh at. He's a very impactful filmmaker, and you really need to go support more original projects like this in cinema. So go see it in theaters if you can. It is truly a masterpiece. And that's kind of what I'm going to lead into this review is, because yeah, I just called it a masterpiece because this movie is a masterpiece, and I mean every single word of that. Scorsese is back.
Can you find the wolves in this picture?
In fact, I see a lot of people in different reviews saying this is one of his more weaker works in terms of his filmmaking library. People compare it to The Aviator and Age of Innocence and some of his other films like that. Honestly, I don't know what those people are on, because this is Scorsese is probably his strongest as a filmmaker since one of his earlier works. It combines everything he does so well in his films in terms of thematic and emotional complexity into one giant mastery of a film. Also, the filmmaking techniques used here in all of his films are just masterful, and it's such an impressive film to watch from that standpoint. This film features Oscar-worthy performances from Leonardo DiCaprio, giving a really, really angry role that's actually mesmerizing to watch at how much rage he imbues into this character. Robert De Niro, is at the top of his game, delivering one of the finest performances of his entire career. The man is such a force of nature to be reckoned with in this film. It's actually truly scary to witness him in action. He's a terrifying character here. And Lily Gladstone delivers one of the finest performances by a female actress I've seen in years. It is filled with such a deep sense of sadness and grief, and really just makes you feel heartbreak at what the events of her character that she's going through. It's very, very emotional to watch. Now, in terms of performances, I do see a lot of people also complaining about Brendan Fraser's performance in this. He's in this for basically like a glorified cameo. He's in it for about 15-20 minutes. A lot of people say he's overacting and being over the top with his performance. And honestly, I disagree with that. I think that his character kind of requires a performance like that. His character that he plays is basically a lawyer that's brought in to defend a very defamed client, if that makes sense. And it would make sense that his character would overact in court, because that's what lawyers do. Court is basically a giant theater play about which lawyer can actually act like their client is not guilty. And specifically in this case, it works way too well in context for me to ignore it. It's so masterfully done. I think Brendan Fraser really does a good job with what he's given. I don't think it's one of the best performances I've seen from him, and I don't think it's going to garner any awards attention. But for what he's trying to do in this film, I think it works. I think the criticisms are kind of unwarranted about his performance overall. I think he does a pretty good job here. Now, before I go into anything about this film, I do need to address the fact that everyone online is freaking out about the runtime of this film. 3.5 hours, I have to admit, is a long runtime. It's not like a short runtime. You have to commit to watching this film fully for that full 3.5 hours. But honestly, I gotta say it right off the bat, this is one of the quickest 3-hour movies I have probably ever seen. And I've sat through a lot. I sat through Babylon, Avatar in theaters. By far, Killers of the Flower Moon was one of the easiest films to watch in theaters that was over 3 hours. Reminded me of Oppenheimer in that respect, because Oppenheimer was also a long movie, but it was very engaging and very entertaining and enthralling. And I would say Killers is on the same level as Oppenheimer. So if you found yourself being able to enjoy Oppenheimer and being enthralled in it, and the runtime flew by, you will feel the same about Killers 100%. I think it's just as engaging, just as enthralling, and just as important. And the reason this film is so engaging also has to do with how Scorsese makes it, because he just makes you so enthralled into the story. This is Scorsese at his angriest and most tragic. It is a true rumination of human greed and grief explored in such a masterful way. To think this is actually based on a true story that actually happened to these people is so sad and heartbreaking. There are a lot of scenes in here that are actually so haunting to witness, knowing what will eventually befall these characters. It's kind of like a situation in a film where you're like, oh, I know something bad's going to happen to this character, and this character is doing something to foreshadow that, and there's nothing I can do to prevent it. It's just so tragic and sad, and there's honestly so many scenes in this film that really just tugged at my heartstrings, because it wasn't emotional in a way that I expected. It was just so tragic and sad, and it really just made me feel... Yeah, it was just so heartbreaking, and Scorsese is able to convey that in such a meaningful way and make it 10 times more impactful, and it's just such amazing thing to witness. As always with other Scorsese films, I got to talk about the filmmaking techniques on display because the cinematography is absolutely masterful. The script is so tight and tense, and really you hang on every word. There's not any scene that's boring in this film. There's slow scenes. It's a very slow-paced film. But there's not a scene in this film that I would say is technically boring. Everything is so engaging and enthralling. I felt myself hanging on every word that every character said, and it was such a masterclass at making an engaging script. I also have to say the ending is one of the best things Scorsese has done his entire filmography. I'm not going to spoil it because it's a very impactful and different ending that I think a lot of people are going to actually enjoy because it's so different, but it ends on such a clever and timely note that really just drives home how impactful this film is, and I think that was an amazing touch on his part. Overall, Killers of the Flower Moon is an important film that truly showcases how strong of a filmmaker Scorsese truly is. It is by far the best film I've seen in 2023, and I do not expect anything from the rest of the year to surpass it. If anything does, I will be genuinely shocked because it's one of the best films, honestly, to release in the last 4 to 5 years, and I will stand on that hill. It really just shows why original cinema is such an important thing nowadays, and I highly urge you to go see this as soon as possible in the nearest theater. I'm going to give Killers of the Flower Moon a 100 out of 100. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. If you are new to my channel, please do not forget to click that subscribe button down below, like the video, and turn on the push notifications button so you can be notified whenever a new video drops on my channel. With that being said, this is Mitchell, signing off. Peace out.